If you're a cyclist, you at times are a pedestrian too. Much is changing in Florida as it slowly becomes more people-friendly.
The whole idea of the courtesy promotes safety is by extending my arm and showing my intention of being courteous to the driver. At the same time, by thanking, I'm adding on to that courtesy. And they're giving me some courtesy in return because I'm treating them in a deferential, respectful way. They're treating me in the same way. And that's what we're trying to really promote here. That's the whole idea behind this.
Scientist Ron Van Houten has been working the streets most of his life. His job is to apply science to real-life situations. His tools are education, enforcement, engineering, and encouragement. Driving is not just getting in your car and following the road. It's more complex than that. We adapt our behavior to different driving environments. In metropolitan areas, we can go from a high-speed, limited-access freeway to a quiet neighborhood in a matter of minutes. As we drive on the interstate, we're focused on speed and distance. In this high-speed environment, bicyclists and pedestrians simply do not exist. Here we are conditioned not to look for or consider any other modes of transportation. But what about when we exit the interstate? As we enter the off-ramp, we have to slow down and transition into feeder roads. We're not going as fast, but we're still immersed in a high-traffic environment as we negotiate red lights and crossing traffic. Unintentionally and unconsciously, we continue to drive in the freeway mindset, without much consideration of non-motorized travelers, pedestrians, and bicyclists. We don't consider them threatening. We're not worried about them running a red light or stop sign or damaging or totaling our vehicles. However, if we drive in a freeway mode, we run the risk of hurting or killing pedestrians and bicyclists. By Florida law, motorists must stop or yield when a pedestrian is attempting to cross the roadway in a crosswalk or cross the road anywhere else. Even if the pedestrian is crossing illegally, the motorist still has the responsibility to avoid hitting the pedestrian. In spite of the law, Florida ranks number 2 in the nation in pedestrian deaths. 10% of the nation's pedestrian deaths happen in Florida. Bicyclists, too, are high on the list of fatalities.
Once you start to make wide roads and fast roads, it's difficult for people to cross them. It's difficult to get from place to place. So that tendency that we saw in the 50s to go in that direction tended to make things less safe for pedestrians. There's an effective way to cross, which is also a safe way to cross. And there's some certain rules you should follow. And we already know from some research we've done that if you indicate that you're going to cross, make a clear indication, there's a higher likelihood that the motorist will notice you and will yield right away. If there's more than one lane traveling in the same direction, never step into the next lane unless you can first look. I stop at the lane line. That's important because you want to check your momentum and look and check to see that there's not a car approaching in the next lane before crossing the next lane. But if you stop, if you see the car, you stay stopped if it's clearly not able to stop and you won't step into its path. Now that car has broken the law by passing a vehicle that's stopped at a crosswalk, but that'll be nothing. If you get hit by that car, there's very little consolation in the fact that you were right. So that's where you need to be careful. Hopefully the enforcement eventually will educate drivers not to behave that way. That's the other end of the story, but you need to look after yourself too as a pedestrian. One way to educate the pedestrian is to put a sign out there, and so one of the signs we've been putting out is thank drivers that yield. And again, that's the courtesy thing. Why do you do that? Because it reinforces the behavior. The person's doing what they're supposed to do when they yield, but if you reinforce behavior, it's more likely to occur. We can punish when it doesn't occur, but you can also reinforce when the behavior actually happens, and we find that's a very strong reinforcer.
If you are going to understand pedestrian and driver behaviors, you have to interact with traffic from both perspectives. Correct practices can be easier to imitate and absorb when the researchers who develop them also demonstrate them.
Now the first crossing, by signaling my attention of crossing here, the people did yield for me, and I thanked them on both sides of the road. By the way, we've scored this, and this particular, because it is the multi-lane and the traffic here, We've seen people don't yield at all to pedestrians. But yet, if you cross in the right way and safely, they will yield to you. So extending the arm is important, indicating your intention. Getting into the crosswalk, but not into the dangerous harm's way, just a foot. And when you see they're slowing, only when you see they're going to slow, that's when you give the wave and you begin. But you watch that next lane, you got a chance to wave in each case in the next lane, right, by picking. And of course, not starting off by stepping in front of cars, waiting until there was some gap, at least so those people had a chance to yield to me. That's what I did as well. So by following some basic safety rules as a pedestrian, I can make this crosswalk work for me, even though drivers aren't fully educated yet in terms of what they need to do. They're still kind of predisposed to do the right thing if you do the right thing. So the pedestrian does have some influence on this, but certainly the drivers need to do more as well.
Many people don't understand how pedestrian crossing signals work. Here's how they work. A safety reminder. When the walk signal appears, check for oncoming traffic and turning cars, then cross, and keep on watching for crossing traffic. The flashing "Don't Walk" signal means that you should continue across if you have started, but do not start if you have not already left the curb. The "Don't Walk" signal means to wait at the curb for the next walk signal and push the pedestrian button if one is available.